Hello everybody, welcome to another tutorial from the WireSoul series, and this one unfortunately won't be about baking as I promised, um, because I have some issues with the tutorial, but I will show you something similar awesome. I will show you how to make this kind of effect inside of Blender game engine. It's the animated texture, but it's kind of special technique without any movie textures or video textures, without any programming, and even without actually animated texture. It's probably the most light technique for this effect for CPU, for computing power, so it shouldn't uh, affect much your frame rate. And this technique is actually used commonly in the Unreal Engine 4, and I will show you how to recreate it inside the Blender. All this what you can see is driven by the material node editor, so we go right to it. Material node editor is actually the one right way how to make materials for the game engine, but there aren't really much tutorials for it, so most people doesn't use it. Uh, very people find it confusing, hard, difficult, and when you see this node setup, I can imagine it looks really confusing. So don't get scared. It will be easier than it looks, and we can go right to the creating our material. So I will make new plane for this. Well, make sure you are in Blender game render, and for this plane I will make new material in the node editor and check use nodes. And now I can see, where is pen here? I can see that I have in node editor some material which output the color to the output node, and this output node is what uh, actually I see in the editor. Well, I will recreating now this uh, plasma or whatever this is, and this plasma is actually shadeless, and it it doesn't affected by any light, so I won't need this material node, so I delete him. I will use only the color and alpha in this output, and because I need to use alpha, I have to go to the material settings. You can see it's pretty different than the common one. Mainly there are fewer options, and I can get rid of physics, but it doesn't affect anything. And I have to check the transparency, and it consider this alpha value for what I see here. So when I am taking this down, the plane disappears. Up, the plane is here, and the color is what you can expect. It's the color of the plane. Well, now I will need, as I can see here, some cloud texture or noise texture, and probably you will think that you can make one texture here, like for example here. For node editor is irrelevant where are you making your textures. So when you make the texture, it's cloud, everything looks good, but uh, there is little problem. The Blender game engine doesn't recognize the procedural generated textures. So anything but image or movie or environment map isn't considered in the game engine. So you can't make this. You actually have to use image texture and make yourself the cloud texture or the noise texture you will use. I already uh, load it into the Blender. I make this one in game, and I will use in this tutorial only two textures, this noise one and one special gradient. And how to make both textures I will show you in the end of the tutorial, because I think that probably most of you already know how to make cloud textures in GIMP or gradients, so I won't bother with it right now. So I place there the texture, and important thing is that this texture have to be tileable, because I want animate it. This actually won't be changed anyhow, it will be just moved, and this is what is different from the other tutorials or other technique how to animate textures, because I will just move the coordinates, the mapping, the textures every frame, and the texture itself will not change anyhow. So I need to be tileable, and it doesn't have to be uh, this cloud texture. It could be like whatever you want, like lava, magma, or water texture, and you will have stream. Like this is the texture which will be animated. So uh, place it right into the node editor, just input texture, and here you can see I in the game engine I can't place there the image, I have to place there the texture itself. So this is why I'm making the texture separately in this editor, and then I place it there. When I am uh, connecting this output to the alpha, I see this is not exactly what I want to have. For better visualization, I put it to the color value, and I see that the color is same in all the plane, and it's because of the mapping of the texture. I of course want map this on the UV coordinates. How to make UV and what is UV unwrapping, I actually made another tutorial before this one, so you, you can check it out. But I will just go to edit mode, U, reset, and I am prepared. But nothing actually changed here, because I have to tell the node editor how to apply, how to map this texture. So I will add another input, and it will be geometry. Put it here, make it even bigger so we will see what's happening. And in this geometry I have the UV vector, which tells the texture uh, how placed the pixels on the plane. And now I see I have the mapping right. This cloud texture is on my plane. I can put this again to the alpha value, and uh, alpha is actually the number You can think about it as this image is actually a bunch of numbers. It's not white and black, but black is 0 and white is 1 and gray values is anything between it. So when this pixel is black, the alpha gets the 0 and uh, the pixel on the plane is actually fully transparent. When it gets white, it's opposite, its alpha gets 1 and the plane itself isn't transparent at all and I can see the color. And this technique or this way of thinking about images as bunch of numbers is actually what we use for animating, because I can take these UVs are actually bunch of numbers with uh, yellow with green and red values. So red values are for x coordinates or u. So when I'm going here for better visualization, I show you this texture. So uh, when I put this and go put it into the color, so we will see how it looks. It will uh, actually give the numbers in the color value. So red for the x or u value are the values from the left to the right, and it's not from the 0 to 1 in the UV coordinates. It's why you see the black here, but it's actually from -1 to 1. And same thing for the green, it's for y or the v axis from the bottom to top, again from -1 to 1. So these numbers are telling the texture where it should place uh, the texture to the plane. I'm going back to this settings and I can uh, actually convert vector map and I can add some value to this coordinate, and if I add the value, for example 1, the texture will be mapped as the UV was set in one value to the up, for example, and this value how it will be moved, I won't change every frame, so this will be actually the animated texture. But the difference between actually animated texture is that I am going to change there only 1 pixel at frame, so it's extremely light for the computing. And here I actually have this texture. It's a very small image. It's actually like this big. It's only 8 by 8 pixels, and every pixel has the value I want apply to the UV coordinates. I want to move it by, and as you can see, here is black, here white, so here is 0, and there is a little bit more and more and more, and I will show you how to manage to make this texture inside the Blender on the end of the tutorial. And this texture could be animated without any impact on the frame rate. So when I have this texture, the UV mapping is the same. I have all the texture in the plane, and I will use this game properties animated. I just checked this, and it means that it will take the UV coordinates for the plane, divide it by the X and Y columns and lines. So I have 8 by 8 image, so I will divide it 8 by 8 and take this as the source for whole image in the one frame. I can tell Blender how many frames I want to use. I want to use all of them. Here is 64 pixels, so the start and end it's 0 to 63. It's actually 64 frames. And speed I will change uh, how I want. I will test it, see how quickly it moves, and I will change the speed. Don't go under the 24. It's very low frame rate and you will see the jittering, or I don't know how it's called, the not smooth uh, movement. But when I set it like this, it's mean that every frame it takes a different pixel. So when I'm going to place here this texture, this gradient I call it, I just get rid of this, hit new, and bring that gradient. I didn't change anything. So this gradient is actually uh, already animated for the engine. Uh, for example, when I take the color, place it there, get rid of the alpha, and run the game engine, I can see the color is changing from black to white, and it's linear change. It doesn't change speed of it, and it's looping again and again. And it's actually all I need for animate anything I want. But I can't put this value to the vector because this value is values from 0 to 1, but this vector needs 3 values for red, green and blue for the U, V and the W. The W is actually not important in two-dimensional image, but I need the 3 values even if the third will be 0. So I will make converter and combine RGB, and this one makes the image from the values. So when I input the value, for example for the G, it means that the red will be 0, the blue will be 0, which doesn't change anything, and the green value, which is used for Y or for V axis, will be changed from 0 to 1, looping again and again. So this coordinates on this image is better visible. This coordinates will move in Y for the one unit and back to 0 and again to the 1 and back to 0. And because this image is stylable only when the coordinates are on the edge, I need to move it actually about 2 units. So I just put math node here and multiply this value from 0 to 1 times 2, and I get the values from 0 to 2 for the green value, so for the y-axis. And this is actually image, but it's the vector 2. So now when I'm putting it here, I will adding the value which will change every frame. So now when I'm in game, voila, I already see that my texture is moving as it should. And this is the heart or the base of the technique, and you can manipulate with this anyhow you want to achieve the results like here. For example, one most common one is to take these coordinates from the UV and rotate them so you can change the direction of movement, and it's made by vector mapping. I place the mapping here so I make sure it's connected right, and I can change the rotation. And again, X and Y are the axes on the image, U and V, and it's not helping me by rotating this one, but the Z value is actually the normal of the surface. It's the axis which I want to rotate. So when I'm looking at the image, now the movement is from top to down, and when I change the Z value, for example, for 52 degrees, the movement is slightly to the left. In 90 degrees, it should be directly to the left, and it's pretty much all the magic. And how can I do something like this one, where the texture is actually changing a little bit and there are different colors? For example, uh, I can look for this and try to explain it on this node, but I already know that that doesn't work very well, so I will recreate it again for this plane. And this one I will make the effect that the texture is changing by duplicating this texture and moving it in another direction. So I will copy this as well. I will adding the same vector, but not to the same mapping. For example, I can use directly the UVs. So one texture will be moved from top to down, and the other one will be moved uh, like, for example, 60 degrees to the left. So one is moving from top right to the left down, and the other one I can see it right here is moving right down. And I am just combining these two colors with color mix RGB and combine both colors with same factor, but I can change this factor, and now I see it's like water, or it's looking like this texture is actually changing through the time, but it's actually two different or two same textures which are moving in different ways, and they can change the color too, so I can have two colors for each texture, like input RGB, so you get the color value, and I can make this red and I mix it with the texture output, but I will not mix it but multiply it. And it's again take this texture not as image but as values, and when the value is white it's mean it's red times 1 and it gets red, but when it's black it's red times 0, which is always 0, and it's black. So this color is actually depend on the texture number 1, I could say. And when I'm duplicate this, well, now you can see how it gets messy in the node editor, but it's very simple thing but not really good organized. So I take the second texture and pick different color like yellow, for example, and now I have yellow in the one texture, red in the another one, and I again can put these color together with mix node, and now I can see there should be two colors. I make it more different. It's not really that different, but it has some variations in it. And this monkey and this sphere which flickering and change color randomly, it's nothing more than changing the coordinates where it's mapped. So for example, for this monkey I don't map it on the UV but on the normals, so it seems like the monkey is shiny, metallic, and even the texture is moving while the monkey is moving. But however you mapped your texture in this geometry panel, you always need this texture to be mapped uh, as animated one and has the UV coordinates mapped on the all image, on the whole image. For example, this I have second UV map. I really don't need it for this purpose. I have it for testing. If I choose the second one, it's actually projected, so it's moving towards the camera always. But the first one, UV map, is always mapped as a reset value. So every face is mapped to all image. It's because this gradient texture is uh, tiled by the UV coordinates. So when I have 8 by 8, I actually have to have all faces to all image. And it's pretty much everything. This tutorial actually could end here, so I will just show you how to make these two textures. If you have some uh, questions, suggestions, or anything, let me know in the comments. And now we can go to the texture making in the game. The cloud one will be really fast. Just open GIMP or Photoshop or whatever. I am sorry for the Czech language of the program, but you should be able to find the settings too. So just make new file, new picture with uh, square values, so same value for the height and width. I'm using 512 by 512, and it will make white image. And just go to filters, and there is draw clouds and derivate clouds or something like this, and it will put you in this little editor, and all you have to do is check here tileable or make tiles. Just hit OK or whatever, and voila, you have your tileable noise or cloud texture. It was very easy, and this texture is actually a little bit uh, more difficult because you have to have the linear interpolations, so the difference between neighbors' values have to be always the same. And I don't know how it's made in Photoshop, but in GIMP is practically impossible to do with the gradients, because these gradients, even if set to linear, aren't really linear. So we will make it in the Blender. Just open new file, make plane, scale it by 0.5 to the half, so it's 1 by 1 meter. Go to top view and add camera. Get rid of all rotations and movement on the camera by Alt R and Alt G. Grab the camera, move it somehow up of the plane, change it to orthographic, and scale is how many pixels you want to have width and height. So I have 8, so I change the scale to 8, and change the rendering settings from cycles to Blender renderer. No anti-aliasing, and dimensions 8 by 8 and 100%. This is what I want, and I will want animation actually from 0 to 64 or 63 to have 64 frames. If you have for example 4 by 4, you will have 16 frames. Well, and now just animate it. Place the camera here, go to camera view, you can see our plane, and this plane will be actually 1 pixel. So I will put this pixel precisely where it should be, and insert the keyframe by the I location, and this will actually takes 8 frames to get to the other side. Well, I get rid of this K because I don't want it to the frame number 1 but frame number 0. Place it here, K location, sit, and in the frame 7 I will have it on the right side, E location, frame 8 will be here, E location. And now I have movement from left to right and to the one top, and now I want to loop it, so it will travel again to the right and to the one top. And I will do it with graph editor. So go to the graph editor, and as I said, I want this to be linear. So select all, hit V and set to the vector, and hit N for the properties, add modifier and cycles, and everything should be perfectly as it is. I just have to make for the Y location the modifier again, cycles, and repeat with offset here 2. And now when I am moving, so every frame should be in next pixel. Now I will animate the color of this by animating the material. So I place new material, shadeless, because I don't want any affection from the light which isn't actually there. And I will start in the solid black color, hit I for insert the keyframe for the color, and in frame 64 actually, so one frame after it gets over the view of the camera, it will be solid white. And I again, and this material colors I just select it all again, V vector, so the change of the color is linear 2, and change the film or the shading, where it is, well, shading alpha to transparent. Output, very common naming convention, PNG, no compressions, and it should be it. Hit animation, it should be in 1 or 2 seconds done. Open again new file in GIMP. Find your images, open one, it will set the image. Ooh. One little problem here, and it's right here. I have to set the output RGB A for alpha. Well, sorry, I have to make it again. It should automatically get rid of the old one. Open it and place all them into the GIMP. It will probably take some time. Hope not too long. Oh, well, it should be done, and you will get this image. Just export it somewhere, and you are ready to make your animated textures inside of Blender. Well, I hope you like it, you use it somehow. I probably made the second part with displacement and normal mapping, but it's kind of little more difficult than just changing the colors. And I hope the next tutorial will actually be the baking one, how to make it, and every little detail. And till the next time, bye.